You don't have to wade too deeply into our humble website's archive to find that I tend to spend way too much money on Mega Man games that I already own. Behold my mini reviews of Mega Man 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 when they were released individually on the 3DS Virtual Console. When the 3DS version of the Legacy Collection hit, I figured I didn't need it, seeing as I already had the individual games on my 3DS already. But then it hit a flash sale on PSN where I snapped it up. Not long after that, it hit an eShop flash sale, and the inevitable happened. The best part, though, is that I saw the physical version of the 3DS Legacy Collection on a Target clearance end cap and bought that too. Listen, I can stop any time I want to. Of course, I appreciate having the first 6 Mega Man games on my Switch as well. The games remain the same as they always have. Mega Man 1 is interesting from a historical standpoint. 2 is one of the best NES games ever made. 3 is nearly as good. 4 is better than you remember. 5 is a technical marvel on the NES. And 6 is super interesting. This version of the Legacy Collection is essentially the same one you have on 3DS, but with 2 interesting additions. First, there's a new setting for the engine speed, which can be toggled between original and turbo. This essentially removes any slowdown in the games. And if you, like me, have gotten used to playing these games with some amount of sluggishness, playing in turbo mode is something of a revelation. The other new option is a rewind button. At any time, you can press and hold the L button and correct that poorly timed jump or careless mistake during a boss fight. The rewind button largely makes save states a thing of the past, although I still save my game between stages because, come on, who wouldn't? Otherwise, this is the same Legacy Collection you probably already own, including the Amiibo Challenges, which must still be unlocked via Mega Man Amiibo, which might not be practical anymore. I will say that the overlay runs a bit quicker than it does on 3DS, especially saving and loading games. I can't help but wish, though, that they'd toss in 1 or 2 obscure Mega Man games to round this package out. Back on the GameCube, the Mega Man Anniversary Collection also featured the Power Battles and its sequel, the Power Fighters. The X Collection, likewise, featured Mega Man Battle and Chase, an almost comically terrible kart racer. There's also Mega Man Soccer out there somewhere. Including 1 or 2 of these side stories would go a long way towards getting folks to double dip on these legacy games. If you already have the Legacy Collection on 3DS and are happy with it, I don't know how badly you need the Switch version. However, both volumes in addition to the upcoming Mega Man X Collection on a single console is awfully tempting, right? It's like the GameCube all over again. Now, I won't pretend that Mega Man 1 is a good game, but the rest of the first volume of Legacy Collection is top-tier NES goodness. The 4 games included in the second volume, however, are a bit more divisive. The overlay has also changed, and not necessarily for the better. For the completionists among you, having both halves of the Legacy Collection on your Switch is probably a no-brainer. But for the rest of you, well, let's go into it. There are just 4 games in the second Legacy Collection, and, unlike most of those in the first collection, I cannot give a full-throated endorsement to any of them. Mega Man 7 is the main series' first and only foray onto the Super Nintendo. In North America, at least, it launched almost 2 years after Mega Man X did, and the differences between the 2 games are severe. Mega Man 7 features very large, clunky sprites, but the camera is zoomed in way too much, making everything cramped. Mega Man also moves with all the speed of a racehorse that broke its legs and is about to be put down. Seriously, after zipping around in Mega Man X, this game is a plotter. It also doesn't help that Mega Man's charge shot is slower than it's ever been. There are some interesting robot masters in here, including a vampire and an off-brand transformer, but this is by far the weakest game of the 4. Mega Man 8 is very obviously a PlayStation game and in fact looks a lot like Mega Man X4. They were both released in North America in 1997. Unlike its predecessor, the big sprites actually fit into their much larger environments this time, and the gameplay is quite good. Master weapons actually have uses outside of boss fights, and it pays to revisit stages to find bolts that you can use to build new parts. This was also in Mega Man 7, but it's more elegant here. What makes Mega Man 8 infamous, however, is its use of anime cutscenes in which Mega Man appears to be voiced by a 10-year-old girl and Dr. Light sounds like Elma Fudd. They've changed a lot of core Mega Man tenets here, including how Rush works, and introducing a new shot type for the standard Buster. I like Mega Man 8 a lot. Aside from the cutscenes, it's a good balance of new and old. Mega Man 9 was originally a WiiWare game. Developed by Inti Creates, it promised to return to the old school games, and indeed Mega Man 9 looks and plays like Mega Man 2. Our hero cannot use a charge shot or a slide here. This is by far the most difficult Mega Man game in the collection, and possibly the entire original series. The music is not up to par with the NES games, and the backgrounds tend to be static black, rather than having any images at all, which I found distracting. Beating the game unlocks Proto Man as a playable character, and a few new gameplay modes. Proto Man's moveset differs considerably from Mega Man's, although, screw the Black Devil. Finally, Mega Man 10, also by Inti Creates, is much more fun than Mega Man 9. You still can't slide or use the charge shot, but level design is much more forgiving. The bosses are more ridiculous, like Sheep Man and Strike Man, and bolts are easier to come by. There are also more play options. You can play as Proto Man from the start this time around, and beating the game unlocks Bass, who was originally downloadable content, who has his own moveset, and 3 bonus levels based on the Mega Man Game Boy games, complete with Mega Man killer bosses, Anchor, Punk, and Ballad. There might also be a code out there that you can input on the Mega Man 9 and 10 title screens that will unlock all the DLC right off the bat, but I leave the internet sleuthing to you good readers. Listeners? As with Volume 1, each game comes with concept art, a music player, and unique challenges. You can turn on a new Legacy mode, which increases the number of hits you can take in each game, which I found critical in Mega Man 9. However, you can no longer save whenever you want or rewind. Saving now occurs automatically throughout each game, and you can only return to a predetermined save spot if you screw up. Otherwise, your overlay options are largely the same as in Volume 1, though you do have 4 framing pictures instead of just 1. Overall, the second Legacy collection is weaker than the first. The games are not as rock solid, and losing the ability to save anywhere or rewind dampens their appeal. I can certainly recommend Mega Man 8 and 10, but that's just 2 games, and half the collection. And again, it's a shame that there aren't any bonus games included that could round out the selection. As it stands, this is not a strong collection of Mega Man games compared to the first. If you want all the Mega Man games on your Switch, you'll obviously need this too, but if you don't feel that need, you might skip this one.